is the Angel Next Door podcast, where we will talk about all things angel investing, what it is, who does it, how do we find them, what does it mean to invest in an early stage company. If you have ever wondered how you can affect the change you want to see in the world, then tune in to learn more. Hi, everyone. In this episode, I'm talking to my fellow Show Her the Money colleague and wine entrepreneur extraordinaire, Marian Leitner-Waldman, to discuss her remarkable journey in revolutionizing the wine industry with her company, Archer Roose. From navigating the challenges of being a female founder in a predominantly male-dominated industry to breaking through traditional stereotypes and securing partnerships with major companies like JetBlue and getting Elizabeth Banks as her spokesperson, Marian shares her unconventional and impactful approach to business. Enjoy the show. Well, hi, Marian. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Marcia. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, I am really excited to hear about your journey and what you've accomplished. You've accomplished so much as an entrepreneur and really built an amazing brand in Archer Roose from the ground up in an industry that is very, very predominantly male, which I know we're going to get into. But before we get into that, let's start by just having you tell us a little bit about how you even started to build your own company and what was your background.
Absolutely. So my background is that I've always loved to build things. So going all the way back into high school, I founded a nonprofit called Save a Village in India. And from there in college, I was constantly doing entrepreneurship competitions and volunteering for Acumen Fund. I was really obsessed with this idea of how do we change and tackle world problems by leveraging consumer behavior, if that makes any sense. But then I graduated during the financial crisis and, I had college loans to pay. And so I took the job that was offered to me, which was working for AXA Equitable. And it was actually an amazing opportunity because I got to work on the innovation side of their business. And I got to help launch a micro insurance product in the Persian Gulf. And from there, I really kind of decided to reconnect back with my roots of believing in kind of social impact. And I ended up working for the Gates Foundation for the Global Alliance for Vaccines and Immunizations to help them bring vaccines to the developing world. And it was an amazing job, but I learned it was probably the biggest eye opener for me because what it really taught me was that real change, yes, comes from policymakers, but it's really the funders who get to decide what ideas get to be tackled, what are the problems and issues that get to be tackled. And that really reaffirmed for me that I wanted to be on the other side of the table. And so one night I was sitting around my dining room table and I had a big business meeting the next day. And I had always been super passionate about wine. And I'd lived with a winemaker when I was in high school in Spain. And my husband had helped build a natural winery in the Republic of Georgia that he transitioned out of when Russia invaded Georgia. And so he came home. He's an American from Western Maryland, but we were wanting to have a glass of wine on a Monday night and lamenting about the fact that we didn't want to open up a bottle. Mm-hmm. And that really sparked the journey of Archer Roose because we realized that there were no options out there that really just let us have that glass. But what's more was that there really were not great solutions out there for consumers if you weren't a wine collector. The industry was really built to serve wine collectors, and it's marketed that way as well. And I really wanted to build a brand for the person who likes to have a glass of wine, who cares about quality, cares about story, really wants to have wine with a soul, but at the same time, wants to do it without the snobbery and haughtiness that is kind of attached to the typical wine industry. And that's really where the story of Archer Roose was born.
Amazing. Wow. You have such an interesting background. Oh my gosh, so many things. You could probably tell stories for days. That's so cool. You call yourself the chief feather ruffler. Tell us more about that.
As we started to ask ourselves, why can't we just have a glass of wine? Why do we have to have this 750 milliliter bottle? It led us on this journey that there's really no reason why wine is put in a 750 milliliter bottle because most of the wine that is produced in the world is actually consumed within 72 hours after purchase, and it's less than 2 years old. But
Wow.
up until the 1970s, only 2% of wine globally was put into a bottle, and that was wine that was meant to be bottled aged. So in reality, putting wine into a glass bottle was about upselling Americans and then later the global consumer on wine that really didn't need that extra packaging. And the result of that was that they pay more for the shipping and the packaging than the wine inside the bottle. So not only does it not fit great for consumers' lifestyle, but it also made it more expensive. And so this kind of is an interesting kind of fertile territory to dive into. And on top of all of that, climate change is a truly existential threat to the wine industry. And 60% of wine's carbon footprint comes from packaging and supply chain. So going back to kind of that start of my story around how do you leverage consumer behavior in order to drive change? To me, this was a great individual way to help drink your way to a cleaner planet was by reaching for wine in alternative format.
So how did you come up with putting it into cans?
Well, that particular decision gets credit for being on a chairlift. My husband was enjoying a beer on a chairlift, and I really wanted to have a glass of wine. And it just came back to if it's the right style of wine and the right format, it should be able to go with you wherever you do. And that's really where the can came into play because the can is infinitely recyclable. Most aluminum has been in circulation since the 1950s. It's not breakable. And so it's perfect for either cracking and pouring into a glass when you're at home or having a vessel to drink out of on the go.
Amazing. So what was it like trying to market that to your customers? How's that journey been?
Well, it was really difficult because the traditional wine industry was really built in the image of collectors. And this is why it's so important in my mind to really fund people with different perspectives. Because one of the things that we realized was that daily wine drinkers were often women who were really trying to moderate what they drank because of all the responsibilities they had. And there was nobody talking to them. There was no brand out there that didn't condescend to them if they were trying to market to them. So it's like mommy juice or jewel box wine. And instead, we wanted to treat these women respectfully and seriously and build a wine brand that was for them. But that was like a real threat to the traditional establishment, both of the people who like to fund the development of new alcohol brands and to the people who distribute and are the true gatekeepers of the industry. And it was hard for them to really understand this because it was so different from their own perspective, which is just such a reminder that, frankly, a lot of people kind of lack imagination and an ability to really understand the challenges or perspectives of others. And that's why you have to include as many diverse voices around the table as possible to ensure, frankly, that all consumer needs are met. And that's kind of been the argument that I have consistently made over and over again with Archer Roose, which is that helped us break through to the traditional establishment. Now we've been written up by Wine Spectator. We have national distributors on our side. We're kind of served all over the country. But it took really a economic argument to break through, which was to demonstrate that this actually wasn't a threat to the traditional wine drinking world. This was about opening it up to incremental opportunity, whether creating an incremental occasion for somebody to have a treat who didn't want to, otherwise overindulge, to open up new occasions, and then to kind of introduce people through this more accessible packaging to the world of wine and potentially convert them to lifelong customers down the line.
That's so interesting. So I've seen so many more cans and you could just like fill in the blank, but most of it's like craft cocktails or what do they call? I don't drink them. So
RTDs.
Exactly. Yeah. Or the Trulies and all that of the world. So what other companies are actually canning wine? Anybody?
Yeah. Well, first of all, just to kind of touch on what you just hit on, there is a wide industry trend towards consumer focus. So making the drink of choice, whether that be a beer or a cocktail much more friendly, accessible, and fit into the consumers' lives. So honestly, canned wine is really just a natural extension of that trend. There are other companies that have gotten into the canned wine space, some bigger strategics and some other smaller brands. And I would say there was sort of a first wave of entrants into the category, many of whom have left. And that's because they didn't pay attention to the quality of the product, which is that they were so focused on the convenience of the packaging that they didn't recognize that this would only be successful if it was a true replacement pour for a bottle. And that's been our differentiator from day one, which was our dedication to quality, not just dedication to the quality of the wine before it's packaged, but after it's packaged. We have partnerships with the University of Cornell and Enartis, which are wine industry-leading wine labs, where we have studied the process behind how to kind of make adjustments in the packaging process to ensure that our wine shows up really well. And the result is that we can bring a, delicious, low intervention, so wine with very little additives that is a great expression of wine itself when it's poured into the glass or enjoyed straight from the can.
Wow. Amazing. So you have had this uphill battle just trying to get the consumer to want to purchase wine in a can. And I can only imagine that fundraising for a company like this as a female founder was a little challenging too.
Definitely was. I mean, I have stories that I could tell, particularly because when I launched this company, I was newly married. So frankly, I remember pitching to a group of male investors and one of them asking me when I intended to start a family and because I was newly married and just the type of questions that would never have been asked by a male entrepreneur. And it's actually probably then not surprising at all that the first check we received was actually a friend of mine from the all-girls summer camp I went to growing up, who actually worked in the alcohol industry and understood what we were trying to do and just got it. And to me, that's just been then emblematic of who really we partnered with to fund our journey was if we're going to do something that is this different and pushes people this outside their comfort zone, then we really need to fundraise from the people who would directly benefit from this product. Like who would be the consumers of this product? And that's why, frankly, we've had so much success. So many people on our cap table are female consumers or female investors rather, because they really understood what we were trying to do and build this brand.
Mm-hmm. And then have you gone to any venture capital funds or angel groups or?
Of course, yeah. So on this journey, we met Elizabeth and Pocket from SoGal Ventures, who were our first institutional check. From there, we have connected with other great angel groups, whether it be Boston Harbor Angels, but also, again, some of the biggest game changers for us have been female-led or female-focused, whether it be the Hollywood actress Elizabeth Banks, and then ultimately, the largest wine company in the world, Constellation Brands, who invested in us because of the traction that we had gained with the female consumer.
Wow, that's great. And then, so tell us more about how you met Elizabeth Banks and how she became part of the company.
Well, it was during COVID. I had known from the get-go that if ever we were going to have somebody truly embody the feather ruffler spirit, which at its core is about shaking up the industry and changing an industry, I needed somebody with a truly irreverent sense of humor, but who had sophistication beyond reproach. And to me, that's always been Elizabeth's MO. And so when we really felt that the brand was at a point where we could truly benefit from a alignment with an influencer of her magnitude, we, sent product to her and she just got it immediately. She was in Utah floating down the river with her boys and she's 2 young children. And she just totally understood what we were trying to do here, which was fundamentally make wine more accessible, allow people to really choose their own portion size for wine and incorporate it into their day-to-day. And from there, the kind of rest is history.
And then how did you end up? I know a lot of our investor listeners and entrepreneurs will be really interested to have you talk about how JetBlue became one of your distributors.
Well, JetBlue is actually not one of our distributors. They are our airline partner. In the alcohol industry, we have we have a very kind of convoluted process called the three-tiered system, but JetBlue is a really fantastic customer of ours. And that process actually started back in 2019. So we pitched JetBlue on this idea that if they wanted to lower their carbon footprint, they also needed to look at kind of the weight of glass on board and the fact that glass isn't actually recyclable in 60% of the municipalities in the United States. And that, frankly, cans were a great option for on board because they were lighter, because they were recyclable anywhere they had a catering station, but also because they were more stackable and easy to kind of use in flight. And so they were really impressed by this pitch and they invited us to submit our wines and they granted us a small test, which debuted in January of 2020. And to be honest, Marcia, I really thought I had it made getting our wine on a major airline. But then, of course, 2 months later, COVID happened.
Oh, dear.
And so our wines were pulled off because everything was grounded. But we continued to nurture that partnership through the pandemic. Basically, in 2022, they started pulling our wine back on board and they invited us to pitch to take over their whole wine program. So we've been really proud partners of JetBlue as the only wine available on board since January of 2023.
Amazing. Wow, that's fantastic. And then do you think other airlines or even sporting arenas and all kinds of places like that where it would completely make sense to have a canned wine would come on board?
I mean, we're already seeing people reach out and ask us to pitch them. And of course, in stadiums is one of our best channels. We're at Bank of America Stadium, Rose Bowl, Toyota Shell Stadium, Texas A&M, stadiums truly across the country, from California to Texas to Georgia to New York and Massachusetts. So it's one of these things that once somebody has started to adopt them, and the fact that the quality of the wine is there, they're seeing the repeat purchase. It's not just a novelty item. We've just gotten increased opportunities ever since. It's been a wonderful ride.
Amazing. So how can people buy it now? Do they go online? Can you get it at any store?
Absolutely. So, well, you can always purchase it directly from us at archerroose.com. So that's ARCHERROOSE.com. And we have our full portfolio available there. But we're also available at Kroger, Target, Sprouts, Total Wine, and a number of other great retailers near you, which is also available on our website. You can just hop on and type in your zip code, and we'll let you know where we are closest to wherever you live.
Wow, that's fantastic. And yes, we'll put all that in the show notes to make sure everybody has the proper spelling, all that. So as we wrap up here, Marian, tell us a little bit about what is some of the advice that you would give to investors out there who are looking at companies that at first might not seem like they might not get it right at first, but what is it that you'd like investors to know about investing in a company like Archer Roose?
Well, there's really two things. The first of all is you've got to look for product market fit. And that really comes down to asking yourself, is this a problem that's being tackled by anybody else? Or does this person have a unique perspective in order to tackle this problem? The second thing you need to look for is grit of the entrepreneur. It's not easy building a company. And I think that honestly, business continuity is truly the goal. Like, you can be successful if you just hang on and continue to fight and grow. But the biggest thing that I think I would love for any investor to kind of know about companies like Archer Roose is just that there are really great arbitrage opportunities out there. And there's a lot of different ways to make a difference in the world. If you're somebody who's really passionate about change, you can write a check to charity, but frankly, that dollar will go a lot further if you're investing in somebody who would not have gotten the opportunity to speak their voice or bring their product to market otherwise. Because only by having truly diverse voices around the table and diverse perspectives can we really develop innovative solutions. And my particular solution at the end of the day is just about ensuring that somebody can have just a glass of wine and moderate their own wine intake and kind of make the world a greener place in the process. But some of these companies are truly tackling generational challenges. And it's a very exciting time to be an investor because you have the opportunity to be part of that change. So it's more than just a strong return, but frankly, an opportunity to change the world.
You are speaking my language. I love it. Excellent. Well, Marian, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Really thank you so much for having me, Marcia.
Hey, thanks for listening. To connect with me, visit my website at marciadawood.com. And if you're looking to learn more about investing in the changes that you want to see in the world, sign up for Anne and Bill Payne's ACA Angel University classes. You go to angelcapitalassociation.org, all one word, to find out the schedule. Many classes are offered, everything from the angel investing basics, fundamentals, risks, due diligence, term sheets, valuations, returns and portfolio strategy. And for a deeper dive, there are advanced classes which include capitalization tables, startup boards, and exit strategies. If you're not already a member of the Angel Capital Association, you can become one for the low price of $295 for the year, and that will give you unparalleled access to discounts, free webinars with a huge archive of content, networking opportunities, and much more. We'd love to have you join us. All content for this website is informational and not intended to serve as legal, tax, accounting, or investing advice. While Marcia, that's me, does serve on the SEC Small Business Capital Formation Advisory Committee, my views are my own and not the views of the SEC or my fellow colleagues on the committee. Our speakers and hosts are thoughtfully selected for their educational value, but their opinions are their own and do not necessarily represent the views of the host, me, or the Angel Capital Association, and neither specifically endorse the use of presenters' products or services. Listeners of the podcast should consult their own tax, investing, legal, or accounting advisors before making important financial decisions. All warranties, including accuracy, completeness, and suitability for specific purpose, are disclaimed.